8:30 in the Tennessee Valley, and time for our special edition of Inside Oakwood with Dr. Leslie Pollard, and he's here with us, and his special guest on the phone, Mr. Johnny Holliday, talking about K-12 education. And good morning to you, Dr. Pollard.
Hey, good morning, Donna. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you so much. You're looking good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm feeling good, too.
Knee feeling great now, getting better and better.
The knee is coming a lot. I mean, in 2 weeks, it's been a remarkable difference.
Right. I can see that. You seem even happier. Right?
I do. I didn't know I was carrying. You know, they say smiling pain. I was carrying the people who bear smiling pain.
Right.
But I feel much better now since I've had it done.
Now, you might also be smiling because didn't you have a big day yesterday?
I did.
Okay,
How did you know that? Yes. Prudence and I celebrated our 41st wedding anniversary yesterday.
Wow.
So God has been good to us. We've been very, very grateful. Very grateful. 41 years
are you about
of a happy marriage, right? Of a happy marriage. So, some people can't stay married 41 seconds.
I know that's right.
So we've been blessed, and God has been very, very good to us. And thanks for all those who sent us well wishes and all those kinds of things.
Yes. Well, congratulations.
We're very grateful.
Happy anniversary.
Oh, thank you very much.
So today we're going to talk about an important issue.
Christian education.
Christian education.
Yeah.
K-12, and I know Oakwood Adventist Academy is planning a graduation coming up.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It's a lot of stuff happening.
Proud of Oakwood Academy and Oakwood Elementary. And part of what we've done is, as we've come in, we've tried to identify that we're actually a pre-K through 18 educational system, meaning that really when you come to the campus, it's all Oakwood. Right? So, I often say, once you get past the security booth, to anybody who's coming, it's just Oakwood. Right? It's just Oakwood.
Right.
So we've got those working relationships. I enjoy the working relationships with our colleagues. All of us are committed to the same basic principles. Isaiah 54:13, which would be our word of the day, which says, all thy children shall be taught of the Lord. Amen. And great shall be the peace. I love that promise. Great shall be the peace of thy children. Wow. So what a parental obligation and what an institutional responsibility for all of us to participate in forming these children with the knowledge of God. So, and for me, that becomes the word of the day, Isaiah 54:13. Amen. All your children shall be taught of the Lord. So when we think about Christian education, we think about Seventh-day Adventist Christian education. What are we trying to do? We're actually trying to continue the work of discipleship and development of students, so that students grow. So that students grow and can make a contribution to the world of service and citizenship.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense. That's
you want to create great citizens and great citizens who do great service.
Yeah.
That's really what we're doing, and that's our purpose, and it's a transformational purpose because our natural bent is to care for self first and not care for others. That's our natural bent. It came from the fall. But as we educate and as we transform students, then they begin to develop the impulse to deliver generous service to God and to humanity.
Yes.
Isn't that wonderful?
That's wonderful.
What a mission for what we do.
And as a parent, I align with that. Raising my kids, that's what I thought about.
Absolutely.
Even at home, not just the education part, but how we raise our kids. That's what we want the outcome to be.
Absolutely. And it's a three-part enterprise, right? It's school, it's church, it's school, church, and family. School, church, and home.
Exactly.
And and Donna, Prudence and I used to say when our girls were coming up, we used to say to every teacher at the beginning of every year when we had the parent-teacher meeting, we'd say, so first of all, thank you so much for what you're doing. But we want you to know that the education of our daughters is our responsibility.
Exactly. Right.
And you assist us in that. That's your role. Your role is assistant. We do not place the full and total responsibility for educating our daughters on you. That's too much to bear. You got 30 little lives there that you're caring for. So that's always been my philosophy.
Right.
And what I say is, if you think something is wrong at one of our schools before we bring on Mr. Holliday, then get in there and help fix it.
Yeah.
Let's get in there and help fix it. We can't stand on the sideline and throw
Rocks.
critiques like stones. You said rocks.
Right.
Throw critiques like stones
Bricks.
and think those bricks are going to fall in place and build the school.
Right.
All those bricks are going to do is tear down the school.
Exactly.
We need to get in there and help make a difference.
Amen.
That's all. And that's the joy of it. That's the joy.
Amen. So our guest today, tell us he's playing a role in helping
huge
us.
role.
Tell us.
A huge
who-
role. Okay, so Superintendent Johnny Holliday who is the superintendent of schools for the South Central Conference. For our guests who are listening, that's one of the what's the best word? One of the territories, one of the jurisdictions in which all of our Adventist churches are organized. So the South Central Conference, and that's. Let me start with the one I always leave off. There's a church in Florida.
Okay.
Isn't there a church in Georgia? I think there is. But I know Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky. I mean, that's obvious. That's the easy part.
Right.
But Mr. Holliday will define what the territory is for us. And he'll talk with us about his unique role as a minister of education to make sure that families have the resources, and I'm talking about the educational and academic resources that they need in order to enjoy this blessing of Christian education.
Well, welcome to Inside. I'm about to say Inside Edition. Welcome to Inside Oakwood, Mr. Holliday. How are you?
Oh, very well. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Doing very well.
Welcome, Mr. Holliday. Welcome. It's always a pleasure to have you and to talk with you. And today, I don't want to make you nervous, but probably 50,000 people are listening to you.
Or more.
So this is your moment, or more. This is your moment to tell them everything you want to tell them about Adventist education.
Yeah. Why don't you start right there where we were talking about the resources and the role that the schools plays and you play in your position as superintendent of schools?
Well, first of all, again, good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning to our listening audience. And want to thank you all for having me. Want to send out a congratulations to Dr. Pollard. I understand and hear the 40-plus years of marriage.
Wow, yeah, thank you, man. It flew by, Johnny.
Absolutely.
It flew by.
Well, I've been married 25 years.
Yeah, amen. Congratulations.
Absolutely. I have an angel.
She stood by you, right?
Oh, man, when you're doing God's work, it's good to have an angel to go home to.
Amen.
Thank God
Amen.
for that. So, again, thank you all for having me. I would like to just share before we get into some questions, certainly.
Say a little bit, Johnny, say a little bit about, I met you in Macon, Georgia. Remember that? I remember the first time I heard you. You were preaching a sermon at,
Absolutely.
Is it Bethel? Is that the church, Bethel?
Bethany.
Bethany, at Bethany Church in Macon. And it was very powerful. And I left and I said, man, who is that? And somebody said, he's the first elder. I said, he's a minister, right? They said, no, he's an educator.
Wow.
I said, wow,
I've
what a
never
gift.
Had the pleasure.
So I met him in Macon. So tell us a little bit about your history and your background, Johnny, and the kind of work you did when you worked in the public sector as well.
Absolutely. I think your comment is very fitting in that it's important that the audience know and those who know somewhat of me to understand my background. Yes, I am an educator, been in education for over 26 years. But the uniqueness of what God has done, most of my education, over 20 years, have been in the public sector where I served as a teacher for just a couple of years with a lot of zeal and interest and hard work. Within the third year of my career, I was an assistant principal. Became a principal of a elementary school, became a principal of a middle school, assistant principal of a high school. Just most of my years have been in administration. But God touched me during that time. I met Dr. Pollard. I was very heavy into public school administration, but also doing a lot of God's work. And so that's really important as God has just blessed me to enmesh the work, because the Word of God says some teachers, some preachers. And when I came into the ministry, fully into the ministry from the public schools, I've often had to ensure that everyone understands that this is God's ministry. But what we do is education. And we won't hide behind the ministry to neglect effective education and instruction. And so I really have really just believe in Christian education and believe in education itself. And so I've just put a lot of time into learning and understanding. And I want to share something. Dr. Pollard commented on Dr. Calvin Rock
Yes.
and the celebration that will be taking place. Well, I don't think many know, but I actually served as Pastor Rock's associate pastor.
All right,
Out in
now.
Las Vegas, right?
Out in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I served as his associate immediately after coming out of the public sector and going into the education ministry in Las Vegas, Nevada. Part of my duties was to be his associate pastor, and what an awesome experience I had. And I would have still been there had the Lord not called me someplace else. So
Yes.
I've been
yes.
married for 25 years, 3 children. One of my oldest son went to Oakwood, of course. He's presently in his second year of dental school.
This Jelani, right?
This is Jelani.
Uh-huh.
My
Okay.
middle son, Kanai, has completed Pine Forge Academy and preparing to see Dr. Pollard there.
Yeah, he's preparing to come to Oakwood, right? That's
Absolutely.
That's what I'm listening for. Those are the magic words. He's coming to Oakwood.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He is coming to Oakwood, and my daughter is, who is my biggest challenge, who grabs my cheeks often without permission.
That's okay.
Oh my goodness, she is going to the 7th grade, and God has blessed her.
Wow.
7th grade here at F.H. Jenkins.
Mr. Holliday is
Enough
the
about
ultimate
me.
girl dad.
Yeah.
He's the girl dad. He really is.
Have mercy.
Oh, so let me just tell a quick story about Mr. Holliday. I had a neighbor when my daughter was in Mercer. She went to law school at Mercer University, and you may not even remember this, Mr. Holliday. But I one day I was there doing some work on the place where she was staying. We had purchased a place for her to stay there, and I saw the neighbor, and he really looked downcast. He was just a wonderful man living in Macon, and so I went over and talked to him. I don't want to call his name, but he's just a wonderful man. He had been injured, so he was on disability, and so he had a lot of time at home, but he kept the house immaculately and all those kind of things. So I said, Otis, I said, hey, man, I said, so how things going? He said, not good. I said, what's wrong, man? He said, my son, he had a 12-year-old son at the time. He said, they're trying to put my son in special ed.
Oh, wow.
And nothing's wrong with my son.
Wow.
Nothing's wrong with my son. I don't know, Johnny, if you remember this case. I called Mr. Holliday. I said, so here's the situation. Here's this parent in the Macon school system. What do we do? What do we say? How does he navigate this so that the little boy is not branded? You know, often black little boys
and girls,
but especially black little boys, because we got a lot of literature on black little boys in the educational system, can often be the victims of the system. So, Mr. Holliday, would you make a comment on that? I don't even know if you remember that, but you were very helpful in what you told me to tell the parent to do. He did it. I checked back with him, and he said his son is on track and doing exceptionally well in the Macon public school system. Okay.
Yes, I tell you, you know, Dr. Pollard, you certainly bring up a very important point. Now, we recognize that in this society, as troubling as the times are, which are not surprising if you've done some research, and God has blessed me over the years, over 20 plus years, to research a lot of what now is being echoed in society. It's always been there, but we somehow dismissed it. But let me share, you mentioned African-American boys, and certainly young ladies also. There's research that speaks to what happens to young ladies, particularly now. We need more young ladies in science. We need them in science and math. And so we're pushing in that area. But to speak to what you mentioned, Dr. Pollard, yes, one of the books, or several books I've researched, is one by a brother by the name of Jawanza Konjufu. Konjufu wrote several books on the conspiracy to destroy the black boy. And that book speaks to the fourth grade syndrome, that something happens in the fourth grade. And also what it speaks to is how we work with these young men, how we work with students in general, just the engagement, you know, whether it's going to be lethargic engagement or whether we're going to work with them in essence of that innate hyperness that many of them have. And that's not a bad thing. It's innate that that type of energy needs to be controlled and guided. But yes, I shared information, what to do with that matter. And one of the important aspects of that shared information was that all schools should have what the old terminology, when I was back there, was an SST committee, which was a student support team. Now there are different jargons for it, but what this team does is determine before a student comes in your door, before he or she comes through the front door of the school, is if there's an IEP or any type of document that speaks to the learning of the child, there needs to be a team in place to look at that and to determine what it is he or she needs, and to be very transparent and whether we could serve that child. Mm-hmm. And so in some cases, there have been situations where a lot of our African-American boys, because of their energy, have been placed in certain places, not so much because of their ability to learn, but because of the inability of some people to teach them, to say, look, your learning style may be that of a lot of engagement and activity, and instead of me placing you in a room that has to do with a disciplinary matter, we need to work with you and ensure that we, cause you to learn. But that's not the only case I affected. I had family members who were young boys, and these are very true stories, not radio, self-aggrandizement, but these are true stories. I had a story with a family member where a child was being guided to special education, and my intervention assisted my brother, as a matter of fact, and that young man now has completed master's degrees and have gone on to be, as Dr. Pollard mentioned, service and citizenship. So I can go on and on, but I'll stop there and allow you all to ask more questions.
Well, yeah, we appreciate that because we know that you bring such a wealth of knowledge and interest in our students. And so I guess we're wondering, can you speak to your district and your jurisdiction and the schools, the many schools that are under your leadership, and tell us about that, and how did we finish out the school year, and did all of our schools go to virtual learning?
Okay, thank you for the question. Well, I serve 4 states. I serve as superintendent of Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky. Although our territory reaches Florida, we don't have a school there, but we serve those 5 areas. And so how did we finish the year? Yes, all of our schools went remote. Virtual learning was taking place in all of our schools. And I'll share with you, it is very interesting when this came about. And again, I don't know how much time I have because you're speaking to an area that I can talk about forever, and that's education. So y'all control me.
Okay. Okay.
Pull me aside. But I want to share, when we had to go to remote learning, we have what's entitled the 8 driving initiatives in the South Central Conference. I don't believe in coming to work every day and hoping that things work out. We have to have a plan, and we have to understand what are we trying to achieve. So we need something to drive us. So we have the 8 driving initiatives, certainly God first in that driver's seat. But we have the 8 driving initiatives, and one of those 8 driving initiatives speak to one-to-one technology for all of our schools. So over 2 years ago, I was pushing that initiative. And when this took place, and we came together, thank God, we came together a couple of weeks before we were out of school for the entire year. We actually came together and say, I called a meeting with all the administrators and said, listen, if we cannot come to school, we need to be prepared. And so we came together before the bulk of us experienced what we did. But my biggest point is over 70% of our schools already had one-to-one technology because that initiative was pushed. What we did when we came together is I spoke to our library services from the union level. We had some funds that were restricted for various areas. I said we're in a position that I want to move some funds and have those funds allocated to ensure that we have 100% of our students engaged and having a Chromebook or an iPad or some form of one-to-one technology. Because those who work with me understand, I do not believe in speaking a language without the evidence of what I'm saying. And so when we say to parents, we're going to have one-to-one technology, we're not going to say to 99 parents out of 100 that we have one-to-one technology. We want to say to 100 parents we have one-to-one technology. And so we finished the year with virtual school, and we've purchased Chromebooks for all the schools.
Wow.
And we're looking forward to moving forward, and I will comment more, but again, I will pause for a question.
So we're ready. You know, we know school is getting ready to start, but before we even get there, talk to us a little bit about how graduations are going to be taking place, and then we can talk about how the school year is going to start and what parents can expect.
Well, graduations have already, for the most part, taken place. We're still dealing with our plans for Oakwood. The principal is in collaboration with me on that, but I will say even again, back in March, we had principals to develop a plan on how graduation would look. Again, we just didn't wait to see what would happen. We wanted to collaborate and discuss what it would look like. So many of us came up with plans, or they came up with plans, and we wanted that to come to me because, again, I've been very, very diligent and steadfast and intentional in creating a system of schools. Not pockets of schools, a system of schools. And so information that I saw had to do with drive-bys, and not drive-by in the connotation that we've heard it before, but drive-by graduations. We've had them. We've had most of our graduations have been virtual graduations where I've had the opportunity to speak and to address the graduates via online communication. And so the bulk of them have been virtual. We've done a graduation drive-by sort with the one in Birmingham, and doing that, and I won't go through all the procedures. We may get into some of that again, but those graduations did not take place without procedural matters as it relates to social distancing, how many people could come, where cars could park, whether you would be able to go into the restroom. If you did, what that looked like, where would you go, how would hand washing take place, how would you even receive your diploma? Would it be extended in your hand, or would you pick it up from a chair sitting 6 feet from me? So all of that was in writing, and I understand we're still dealing with Oakwood, and I don't want to be premature in my statements with Oakwood because we are planning, the principal is planning, and I understand there are plans in place, but in this such uncharted and precarious environment, things change. So I won't make some detailed comments about it, but I will say to the listening audience that I'm very much involved and I'm very much aware of where we're going.
Okay, so what can we look forward as far as school starting? Do you have any updates on how that's going to happen, if it's going to be face-to-face and things like that for your schools? In light of COVID-19, that's what I'm really speaking to. In light of COVID-19, how do we plan to go forward and begin a new school year?
Absolutely. Well, the first answer, or the first very clear answer, is that yes, we will have school. School will start in the fall. In fact, today I will be having a meeting with our K-12 school board to discuss and to further discuss our plan. I want the listening audience to know we do have a plan in place, and we've had a plan in place for probably a month or so. But I want to share with the listening audience, we have a plan in place. We have a written plan in place. But a written plan in place is much easier than a logistical plan, a plan that addresses when you say we will have all students temperatures checked. But what does that look like? The logistics of that is so important. So yes, we have a plan in place. Yes, we will be going to school. We have studied 3 platforms: traditional, virtual, blended, hybrid, or hybrid blended. We've studied those areas and still studying those areas. And so today we will be looking again at those areas with our K-12 board and making a decision. Now, let me let me just take some time here and share something with you all. This decision, you know, I know many of you have heard that the cases have spiked.
Mm-hmm.
This decision that will be made, I need everyone to understand that a lot of prayer has taken place, that this decision is about the safety of our children, our staff. And yes, we certainly, and I'll address learning in a moment, it is certainly about learning. But I want to be very transparent about something that I think I want to share with you all.
Okay.
When I first came into the ministry, I would often hear, not often, I still hear. In fact, I can remember going into one school and having lengthy conversations about how many students, where my computer would be, or if I would get a new one, how I would print, if I would knock a door down to come in through a certain place into my office. Just a lot of conversation about those type of operations.
Mm-hmm.
And I stopped in the middle of saying I would be receiving a new computer and a new printer, and I said, but what about the students? What about the children? Let's talk about the children.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hear this comment all the time, how many students do you have? Well, people, we're in a place that students are important. No, they're always important. But when you ask that question, from my studies of Ellen White and from my studies of the Word of God, and when it speaks to our mission, and that is evangelism and bringing children to God, causing children to be citizens and to serve. And I don't want to get it wrong, Dr. Pollard. I think Oakwood says you come to learn and you leave to serve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
enter
so
to
with
learn,
that,
depart to serve, yes.
Enter to learn and depart to serve.
Yes.
And with that in mind, when you ask me how many students, we're in a place, you all, now where it's not just about how many students, but the safety of the students.
Mm-hmm.
It's always about the safety of the students. But today, if the concern is whether I have 100 students in a building where I'm dealing with social distancing, where I'm dealing with their safety, where I'm dealing with the lives of teachers and students and staff, yes, students matter. But are you asking that question because you're concerned about evangelism? You're concerned about the number that will be saved? Or are you just concerned about funding, about money? Okay, now, listen to me carefully, because I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I want to be very transparent in that comment, and that I, too, am concerned about funding and hiring teachers. And as we talk, we will talk about what's happening even in that arena, the workforce when it comes to virtual schools, how that could affect the workforce. So, again, my prayer, the prayer of many who are praying, is when we make a decision, the reason this decision has not been met with haste or allowing one to be backed in a corner and to give you a decision to gain the approval of man to say, well, Mr. Holliday is on top of it. He knew in March what they were going to do, and yet numbers have spiked. Now we're beginning to mandate masks in various places. But he knew in March because of the approval of man. I don't want to know in March. I want to know based on prayer. I want to know based on the safety of our children.
Amen.
I want to know based on the care of teachers. You know, because as I talk about this, our plan, and we have one, our plan speaks to how many SEERs. We have somewhat 61 or more teachers, and we're looking at what does it cost to purchase not just masks, but a shield for every teacher. What's the cost of that?
Right.
What does it cost for having masks for all students, even though it's not mandated, masks where we want students to come into the building with masks, but we want to make sure that we have a mask if necessary. What does that cost?
Right.
What does it cost to have sanitation or sanitizing instruments, and not only instruments, the temperature gauges and the soap and so forth? What does that cost? So this decision is one of the most important decisions of my life, Dr. Pollard's life, anyone who's in leadership, any principal. This is a very important decision. and I can live with the decision. And let me say this, and I'll stop and pause for you to ask questions. I want to make one more comment.
Okay.
There is something that's called organizational happiness. In my studies in organizational happiness, it speaks to hedonic joy and hedonic happiness, where you're trying to satisfy everyone. In organizational happiness, yes, we want everyone to be happy. Happy people produce more. But if we do virtual, someone's going to be unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
If we do blended, someone's going to be unhappy. If we do traditional, someone's going to be unhappy. What the effective leader must do is make a decision based on being informed, based on the evidence, certainly based on prayer, and in this case, and this may come up even more, based on the consultation. I'm not just sitting here hoping things happen. In fact, today at 10 a.m. this morning, I have a Zoom meeting with a group of medical advisors. And one of those gentlemen we hope to be, he has been on the group, is Dr. Milton Brown.
Okay.
Dr. Milton Brown is, I understand, is participating in seeking a cure for this virus. So again, whatever the decision may be, know your children were the first at the top. Know the teachers were at the top.
And we feel your passion.
We do.
We feel your passion, and we feel confident that our kids are going to be returning to school, whether it's going to be virtual, whether it's going to be face to face. We know that there are going to be guidelines in place to protect our kids. We know we feel you when you say that the children are number one, and that's what you're most concerned about. Where can people get more information about school starting and things that are happening? Where can they go?
Well, in addition to forwarding information home to our constituency, you can go to iamsouthcentral.org.
Okay.
iamsouthcentral.org for more information.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate all the information that you shared, and hopefully, if we have any other questions, people will post them on Facebook, and we'll get those answers to them. But right now, Dr. Pollard, anything else we need to cover before we go?
Well, what I take away from what Mr. Holliday has said is safety first.
Right.
That he's prioritizing, and the school district is prioritizing safety first on behalf of our little ones, and what could be more precious than that, than protecting them.
Right.
So thank you so much, Mr. Holliday, and we will talk again.
Before y'all go, I know you're quick. This is one very quick statement. Even if we do virtual, I need the audience to know we will be having in-service training during the onset of the school year on Google Classroom. And not only, again, are we just going to say if we do virtual, we want to be doing effective lesson planning and effective remote learning. So we will have an educational consultant who's going to be working with us on implementing those tools with our teachers to make sure that we're having effective learning taking place and education taking place in our schools.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you so much. And listen, join us again for another edition of Inside Oakwood coming up on Monday right here on Praise 90.1 FM WJOU.